Hi, my name is Rachel Henry. Welcome to week 1 of the Evolution Knit Along. This week we'll be working on sections 1 through 3, and there's a couple topics I'm going to show you a little more about. First up, we'll talk about how to do a garter stitch tab, and of course I have my own way of doing things, so I'll show you my method and you'll see if you like it. Next up, I'm going to show you how to correctly make a 3-into-1 stitch, so there will be no confusion there. And finally, I want to talk a little bit how to properly use the charts for evolution. So this is a symmetrical shawl, but the right half is a mirror image of the left half, and you are only provided with the charts for the right hand side, so you need to know how to work those. That's about all there is. Okay, first topic, how to do a garter stitch tab. So there's lots of ways to get this done. I'm just going to show you the way that I like to do it in case you're looking for another way. So I like to cast on provisionally rather than actually casting on using a normal cast on so that there isn't that bump. I also like to cast on provisionally over the cable of the needle I'm already going to use so that I don't have to go back later and pick out waste yarn. So holding my two tips of the needle parallelously, I'm going to go ahead and pull one of them out. So this is going to be my working needle and I'm casting on over that cable. I don't make a slip knot, I just sort of pinch everything together and I go over and under and over and under until I have way more stitches than I actually need. And I like to end with an under because I think that's a little bit easier to knit with. So again, just sort of pinch everything closed. This isn't stable at the beginning, so it's not a cast on that I'd necessarily recommend for beginners, but it works for me. So I've turned it around. I now have the stitches on this needle and that cable, and then I have this needle over here. Now, the directions say that we're going to cast on 3 stitches with a provisional cast on, so I only really need these first 3 loops. These are just there, you know, so that I don't have to worry about losing the last ones. You can see how the last ones get a little stretched out. So I'm going to cast on provisionally 3 stitches and then knit 7 rows. So this is my first row. 1, 2, 3. Now there's all those other things on the needle. I'm just going to ignore those. Those are now not useful. Turn it around. Let those other ones sort of trail off. I'm not going to worry about them. We'll knit through the other direction. That's row 2. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'm going to fast forward until I have 7 on here. So that's 2. Okay, so I've knit my 7 rows. You can see I've now unwound the tail, so I just have those 3 individual stitches on the cable, the provisionally cast on ones. I have 3 stitches up here, and the next step is to pick up and knit 1 stitch all along this left hand edge. Now sometimes when I'm making a garter stitch tab I completely lose count of how many rows I've done, and then I'm like, oh, have I done 7? Have I done 8? Really what matters is, can you pick up 3 stitches? And I see 3 places to do that. 1, 2, 3, that'll work out just perfectly. So I'm going to go ahead and pick up and knit. I like to go right in the center of the bump on the edge, and I don't know what other people do, but that seems to give the best edge for what I like to do. So there's 1, 2. Last one's a little trickier because the tail is in the way, but don't let that bother you. For what it's worth, it doesn't really matter what side the tail ends up on. I think the next row is a right side row, so I'm going to bring the tail to the front so that it stays on the wrong side. So I had my original 3 stitches, 3 stitches picked up along the edge, and then now this is the part, this is the reason why I cast on over the same cable. These 3 stitches are already available. I don't have to pick anything apart, they're already on a needle. They are mounted, every other stitch is mounted backwards. So the middle stitch you can see is mounted correctly, but this one is mounted backwards. So I'm going to knit these 3 stitches, but knit them through the leading leg always, regardless of which way they are mounted. So there we go. So now I have 9 stitches on the needle and my garter stitch tab is complete and I'm ready to do the first right side row. Now you might ask, and people have many times, what is a garter stitch tab good for? And the main thing it's good for is that when you have your finished piece, and this is a piece that has 3 stitches of garter stitch at both edges, the top edge will have a smooth look to it. There won't appear to be a start or a finish. It will appear as if the garter stitch runs along the right hand edge all the way around the neck edge and then all the way back up. So in general, this piece follows the pattern of knit 3 stitches, do whatever the pattern is for the right half. The center stitch is going to have a 3-in-1 just so that it increases at the center. Do whatever stitches for the left half and then knit 3. That would be the second half. And then on wrong side rows, you knit 3, then in coming back the wrong way, you do the left hand side first, you do the center stitch again. On wrong side rows, you just purl those 3 stitches for the most part. And then on the right hand side, you have, you do whatever the right hand side chart is, and then finally knit 3. So that's the overall plan. The first row, we're going to do 3 and 1 3 times. I thought this is a perfect time to go into that with you. So what's a 3 and 1? A 3 and 1 is a knit 1, a yarn over, and a knit 1 back into the same stitch that you did the first knit 1 into. So you're taking 1 stitch and you're turning it into 3. So you're working 3 stitches into 1, 3 and 1. Every once in a while, depending on the literature, you may find it described differently, but this is the way that makes the most sense to me. So working 3 stitches into 1. So row 1 of evolution starts with knit 3. So we're going to knit 3 into those edge stitches. This will stay the same throughout. So you're always going to start every single row with a knit 3. Then we're going to do a 3 and 1 3 times. Once for the right side, once for the center, once for the left side. So it looks like this. You knit into that stitch, but leave it on the needle. So I'm not going to slide it off. Do a yarn over and then back into the same stitch. I'm going to show you again with the yarn held in my other hand. So next stitch, this is the spine. You knit into that stitch, you yarn over, and knit back into that same stitch one more time. Okay, last time, back in the left hand. This is the left hand side of the shawl. Knit into that stitch, leave it on the needle, yarn over, knit into the same stitch. We've got 3 stitches on there. Final step, we got to do the left hand edging, knit 3. Okay, that was your first right side row. And row 2, we're going to place the markers, mark the center spine with a locking stitch marker, and do some other things. So let me grab some markers. I'll be right back. Okay, back for row 2. This is the row in which we put in all our stitch markers. I thought I'd just show you how I mark the center, and we'll go from there. Okay, so this row, first you got to knit 3. That's the edge. You got to place your first marker. This is always going to mark the difference between your edge and your right hand side and remind you to do the edge separately. We're going to knit 4. This is the right, well, not, we're on the wrong side, so this is the left hand side of the shawl. It's the 4 for the left hand side of the shawl. We're going to knit 1. This is the center stitch. Now I find it's useful to mark this with a locking stitch marker, but from the right hand side, so I'm going to come back and do that in a second. We'll knit 4 for the wrong side of the right half of the shawl. Place another stitch marker to mark the edge, and then do knit 3 to finish. And like I said, I like to mark on the right hand side, the center spine. This is because you need to increase at the center at the same time each time, and it's easier if you can see it. So there's 4 for the left half, 4 for the right half, and then your center stitch. I'm just going to slide the locking stitch marker right in that purl bump. And that'll carry up. In a few rows it's going to be too far below, and I'll just move it up a couple rows, and that's all there is to it. So go ahead to get to work on section 1 and 2, and then I'll come back and talk to you about section 3. Okay, I'm back here to talk a little bit about charts. Starting with section 3, both charts and full written directions are provided for this shawl. If you're following the written directions, you can just follow them from beginning to end. You don't need to worry about mirroring anything or right hand, left hand, that sort of thing. But if you're using the charts, it's important to know that they represent only the right hand side of the shawl. And to do the left hand side of the shawl, you need to do a mirror image of the chart. So for instance, on say row 3, and the chart doesn't show the edge stitches or the center spine stitches. So on row 3, you would knit 3 for the edge, then do a 3 and 1, then purl 1, knit 1, do whatever in the box as many times as you need to. So purl 1, knit 3, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1. Now you have reached the center, so you should see your locking stitch marker. The center stitch on right side rows is always a 3 and 1, so 3 and 1. And now we need to go back the other way. So to do the left hand side, to do a mirror image, you actually start over here and work your way back to the edge. So starting at the center and working your way out, it would be purl 1, inside the box, knit 1, purl 1, knit 3, purl 1. Do that again if you need to. Then knit 1, purl 1, a 3-in-1, by now you should have reached your left-hand edge marker, and you should have 3 stitches left that you knit 3 into. I hope that's helpful. It gets even more fun when you're doing the reverse side, because when you're working the wrong side, you need to do the mirror imaging and also mentally flop it around because you're working from the wrong side. So on the wrong side, say on row 4, you would be starting at this edge, even though the numbers are over there, because this is always going to be the edge. So you're always going to start here, work across, do the center, and then come back. So on the wrong side row, you would knit 3 for the edge, slip your marker, then it's purl, 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 knit, purl 5, knit as many times as you need to. You end with purl 2. Your center 3 stitches, because you did a 3-in-1 last time, should just be purled. So purl 3 for the center, and then you work your way back. So purl 2, knit 1 and purl 5 as many times as you need to, purl 1, purl 4, slip your marker, and knit the last 3 stitches. So I hope that's helpful. If you find it at all confusing, you should be able to compare what I just said with the written directions that are supplied and decide whether you'd rather use the charts or the written directions or some combination of both. Okay, so thanks for listening. I hope you learned a little something. Go get to work on your shawls, and I will see you next week, where we will do the transition from section 3 to 4 and also all of section 4, which is cables. See you then.